I'm joined by Deputy Commissioner Tony Zaswoski. Uh, Deputy Commissioner, we are taking a quick break from the draft here, featuring myself and Dan on the desk to now bring you in and chat with us, which we did at the NCDC Championship, which featured the Ogden Mustangs and the South Shore Kings. You and I had a great conversation. Happy to have another one. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate having me. It's an exciting day for the NCDC and the USPHL.
It continues to be an exciting, it feels like a couple of months, couple of years for the NCDC, a league that just keeps getting better and better every single season. We're here on draft day. The draft is going on right now. Let's talk about the importance of a draft, right? Why is this draft such an important process, especially for some young players who are waiting at home to see if they've been drafted?
Well, I think you got on two sides, right? There's the importance of it from a league and a team standpoint, and there's also for the prospects. Obviously, as players, you're trying to, you've worked hard all season and you're trying to see if you're noticed by teams out there, right? This is a chance for the players, kind of have their name called and get more on that radar. There's a lot of steps in the process to getting to NCAA college hockey, and being identified by a junior team, just one of those steps. And so for the players, it's a year-long or even career-long journey to get to this spot. And from a team, frankly, it maps out your future. The teams that really put the work in and scouted and built those relations all season, this is really where championship teams can be built and really put you on that path to kick off a great next season.
Now, this year, there's also phase two, which for you folks at home is going to start 15 minutes after the end of phase one. So you won't be kicked out of the stream. We're going to go right back into it. But for phase two, why is that important? And what makes it different from phase one of the draft?
Well, I think that's one of the things that, when we were talking about, when we were looking at the USPHL a month ago, and, Murray Gunty and myself came in and talking to the executives and the board is that, again, we want to be closer to the players, right? And again, the phase one draft, it's very important, but a lot of those players just weren't seeing playing time yet for the league. The league's more of an 18, 19, 20-year-old league. Granted, got a bunch of 17-year-olds in there, but the draft was kind of like a year out for the guys. And, really the importance is that, where the colleges are looking. Colleges are looking at 19, 20-year-olds. Again, our teams are building relationships, they're talking to players. So really the importance of that phase two draft is for now, right? Again, a lot of other pro sport leagues do that draft where you're drafting for right now. And that's really what that phase two draft does. It really puts, rewards teams that have done the work and built those relationships and identify those players and get them part of your team now by having that 18, 19, and 20-year-old draft.
And it's great for immediate impact, right? And it does add a little bit of extra strategy, a little wrinkle to the draft, right? Where you might not, you don't have so much room to grab everyone, right? So you have to decide, do we want to build a little bit more and go heavy in phase one? Do we want to take full advantage of phase two? It allows the teams to be more creative in filling the roles they feel they need to fill.
Well, exactly. Because at the same time, the teams that are moving guys on to college, right? You never know when those guys are going. And so you don't know what birth years are open, right? Teams are really one with experience. And again, if you're moving guys on, that's where you kind of create those gaps in your draft or in your roster, right? And this is a draft that gives those GMs an opportunity to kind of show the player how serious they are and say, we want you, and call their name and get them, in their logos. So I'm excited to see how this goes today. And, again, same differences is really the makeup of seeing how we've got, the 12 teams on the East Coast and then we've got the Western Conference to kind of see the diversity across the nation of teams and players that'll be called. And then also see where players are coming from, globally, right? As our league is expanding and attracting a lot of players from around the world.
Now, you talked about interim commissioner Murray Gunty, yourself, and also the Tier 3 Director of Operations, Mark Kumpel. You guys are coming into this system, and we kind of teased that there was going to be, some cool stuff you guys are working on when it comes to things like showcases, when it comes to the presentation of all-star events, and when it comes to the playoffs. Can you share a little bit more with us now, after a couple of weeks, about what your vision might be for those jewel events?
Well, I think, right now we're working through the competition committee. I think that's the big thing, is that we're trying to work with our members. They're on the ground. They're the ones interacting with the team, seeing what maybe gaps were that they were looking for. And at the same time, the scouts, how do we do it? And really I can't give any exact details, stuff like that, because it's still in the process. But, from a showcase standpoint, I know the NCDC, we're looking at the showcase calendar and saying, how can we continue to put our players in the best position so scouts can find them, right? Obviously, everything's virtual now. They're out there watching stats online, watching the games, but we want to put them in a position and say, hey, how do we get them seen? And, we've got, I think in the next month, we'll have, some cool things coming out with the showcases. And then the same difference, the All-Stars, right? I know the All-Star event was a neat thing that they did last year. I believe it was at BU and had a great, Division I and Division III, scout showing. But again, I think that's, as we learned from the Deneen Cup, is that the league is really growing, and the strength of the West and stuff, and trying to look at better ways to continue to showcase all of our players. And I think, that's the next thing, is that with that All-Stars event, is where can we put our players and how, showcase all of our top prospects and top players in that All-Star event, and then carry that momentum to the, Deneen Cup, right? This year was kind of a best three, kind of going all the way through there. And all these events is trying to say, how do we make these marquee calendar events? Hey, these are the showcases the scouts will be at. Here's the event for our All-Stars, and here's our championships. And really, that's what we're working through right now. So again, like I said, nothing that we can sit there and kind of say, okay, here, we've passed this, and these are the things coming. But I would say those are the exciting things that the players and their families and advisors should know that are coming. That, again, we're continually evaluating the way we're doing things. And I think the fans and the players and everybody will be very excited by, the calendar coming up for next season.
Hey, it's always good to keep improving, to keep finding new ways to make the product better. I mean, without, we always say on the Dan K show, without the teams, without the players, there's not much for us to talk about. There's not much for us to do, right? So the more we can get a chance to service those teams and service those players and make their experience better, the more, the better the league will be as a whole. And before we close here, before we get back to this continuing live draft coverage, Tony, I just wanted to ask you about what is maybe a player who has been drafted at this point, right? What can they be looking forward to potentially as part of the NCDC coming up next season?
Really, I think the thing is that I was a coach for 5 years as a head coach and GM in this league. I was an assistant and at juniors for a long time. I think really for everybody, the players drafted and not drafted, is that really everybody has to understand is that you're just looking for an opportunity to play. And the guys who are getting drafted were guys who are seen by scouts, in the right events, doing the right things that way, and they're being identified, which means they're going to get every opportunity to make that team, right? The players who aren't called, it doesn't mean that you're not a Division I prospect, doesn't mean you're not a player we want in the NCDC. It just means you might not have been seen enough by coaches, and that's the opportunities all our teams have tryouts to get more opportunities to be seen. Because the one thing that I try to educate parents on is that NHL teams have 16-person full-time scouting staffs that are in rinks watching. They have full-time, departments that are watching video, and they hit on one out of every, or their goals. They have 2 out of every 7 draft picks make their team. That's a full-time doing everything they can here. So again, in terms of junior teams that, the coaches are doing some scouting, they're running in and out of the rinks, again, is look for opportunities as a player. Okay. So, all you're trying to do is just get to the next level, right? So if you're right now, you're trying to get into training camp, right? That's ultimately it. Some guys are going to get drafted and make it into training camp. Some players are, might be a free agent still through an open camp through the summer. Your job is to get to the training camp and then work your way, on the roster, work your way in the lineup, become that impact player. So really, that's my, note for all the players out there is that, again, yes, there's gonna be a lot of names called here, but, the league is, as we were kind of like looking at the numbers, we've had, over 100 NCAA commitments this year, out of our 16 teams, so when you break that down per team, I mean, players, over 5 players per team are going that way, same difference here. We're tying in the Premier and the THF, their players are getting tendered. I think it was over 85 Premier players played in the NCDC this year. So players who don't make, the NCDC, you want to be in a spot to get to the NCDC so you can get to college. So I think really that's the thing that we're looking for, is that we're continuing to drive up the level of the league, the way the league operates, and the experience for everybody else. And really my message to all the players here is, find a way to get in the league, because this league's good things are happening right now, and it's an exciting spot to be.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, thank you so much for joining us, Deputy Commissioner Tony Zaswoski. Now I'm going to send it back to myself and some guy, I think his name is Dan L, Dan M, Dan K, and myself live on the air. Deputy Commissioner, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.